Today I will be reviewing the book Appetite for America by Stephen Fried and the documentary The Harvey Girls, Opportunity Bound by Katrina Parks about the restaurant and hotel phenomenon created by Fred Harvey. The book starts out asking the question, who the hell is Fred Harvey? And gives a brief idea of what the Fred Harvey eating houses and hotels were. Then the book makes a turn to start at the beginning, in London, where Fred Harvey was brought up. Fred Harvey immigrated to the United States when he was only 17 years old and was hired as a dishwasher in a coffee house, working his way up through the restaurant as a waiter and eventually a line cook. This is really where Fred Harvey learned the basics of the restaurant business. He eventually married and moved to St. Louis, where he opened his own restaurant. When that restaurant was destroyed during a Civil War uprising, he moved to Leavenworth and started a train ticket sales office, working closely with the train lines and eventually striking a deal to start running restaurants in the Santa Fe Railroad depots. This was the start of Fred Harvey's true legacy. The book was very interesting to read, not just about Fred Harvey and all the genius business practices that he developed, but the book also covered a great deal of history surrounding the Fred Harvey timeline. While reading, you also feel like you really understand what it was like to live during the time period with the types of medical care and technology available at the time. The book discusses many great points of how Fred Harvey was a business genius and was truly ahead of his time. Fred Harvey tapped into markets that were easy to enter and take advantage of. This included the shipping business. He worked with agriculture and raw good providers to transport their goods across the country using the railroad. This seems like common sense now, when we are shipping all over the world, but in the 1800s, the technology wasn't there to mass ship large amounts of raw material over land. This led to Fred Harvey using the trains to transport all his restaurant supplies by train, to include a refrigerated car for the dairy and meats, allowing for the first rare steak to be served in the West. Fred Harvey also revolutionized the American dining experience, using his knowledge of English dining etiquette and teaching Americans one meal at a time. This included only the nicest table settings, imported china, and requiring men to wear suit jackets in his restaurants. This was extremely different from what was available for food on the railroad up until this point. The eating houses prior to the Fred Harvey houses didn't give diners enough time to eat and tended to reuse the uneaten food for passengers in the next train. He had the highest standards for the quality of the food that was served, to include the perfect cup of coffee. His record-keeping and ordering system was just as advanced as what restaurants can do using modern-day computers. Many people think Fred Harvey was very progressive for his time, since he decided to hire all female waitresses in his eating houses after his new colleague, Tom Gable, suggested it in the Raton Eating House. The purpose wasn't necessarily to progress women and have them work, but more that it might solve the problems that they were having with the black waiters in the West, since there were former Confederate soldiers causing problems, or the male waiters tended to get liquored up and cause trouble. Tom Gable thought that women might have a positive, calming influence on the men in the eating houses and even the customers in the Wild West. Women were cheap labor for the time, and they were only welcome to work while they were unmarried. It was, however, a great opportunity, as seen in the documentary by Katrina Parks, where many former Harvey girls were interviewed. Fred Harvey was an outstanding marketer in the 1880s, utilizing newspapers and word of mouth to share how good his food was and how great the hospitality is in his restaurants. He would market to the popular trends of the day, such as the healing powers of the West, opening up the Montezuma Resort by the New Mexico Springs for people who may be sick to come and feel better. According to Kelly Huang, Harvey also made deals with Native Americans to produce and sell souvenirs to the tourists, making his restaurant stops more of a tourist trap and giving a way for Indians to make money who didn't have many opportunities in the New West. Overall, Appetite for America does an outstanding job of telling the story of the Fred Harvey business and showing the great business and marketing practices that he used. The book and movie were especially interesting since I live in Albuquerque and have been to the La Fonda House in Santa Fe, which was built by Ford Harvey in 1926 and was an important part of the Manhattan Project.